question everything. Quote, I seek not to answer all the questions, but to question all the answers, unquote. Kwai Chan Keen, aka Grasshopper, from the 70s TV series Kung Fu. Hello, and welcome to this video presentation. I am the Couch Guru, and today I am going to compare the Bible's book of Genesis from the King James Version 1611 with the ancient Assyrian Aramaic or Asherit, Kitab Asherit Brita, or Genesis translated into English by Mesopotamian born Victor N. Alexander, Aramaic speaking translator and filmmaker. He has about 15 years to 38 years experience in independent film. Graduate from the Film Academy in San Francisco and did about 15 years doing independent film through Hollywood. Okay, for the first time, you can hear a truly authentic translation of the original words of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, or Jesus Christ, as revealed by the first apostle, scribes, and theologians through the series. Victor N. Alexander translated the authentic ancient Aramaic scriptures, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, the Galilean Aramaic New Testament manuscripts, into English. Okay, so let's begin. Well, why did I create this video series? It's because there's so much hype and fluff out there. People pulling the wool over other people's eyes, be it a church, pastor, reverend, or Christians, saying this and that about Genesis and the entire Bible when it's inaccurate because they have copies of copies of copies, translations of translations of translations, not from the original manuscripts that were preserved, the OT and the Aramaic or Hebrew New Testament. They got it from the Greek, and so they're giving you a translation in English from the Greek and the Latin. Okay, so let's listen to what. Well, I actually found this video on YouTube, the Book of Genesis KJV, audio Bible, full version by Alexander Scorby, narrated by him. Okay, brought to you by Good Hope. So yeah, subscribe to his channel. I think I subscribed to his channel. I'm not really sure, but I will now. Yeah, because I like Alexander Scorby. He was a great narrator for many of the Jesus films. With their skinny Brian, English actor, and yeah, he became popular and famous. He just made it really interesting. It's just the way he said it. Always just get him confused with John Gielgud. He was actually on a lot of those movies. John Gielgud. Yeah, completely different guy. But yeah, he's great. So let's have a listen to what he has to say, because I'm going to compare it with the Aramaic Genesis. So that, you know, you'll be out there preaching on the street and you'll be able to tell them the truth. Okay? This is according to what was translated from the ancient Old Testament Brita of the Assyrian Aramaic or Kitab Asherit or Asher, okay, into English. So you can go out there and be confident that you're telling the truth. You know, a lot of people are going to come at you, right? Come at you hard because they say, "Oh no, that's not what my Bible says." Well, they have, as I said, they have the later translation. They don't have the original manuscripts. They have copies. He's famous, well-known theologian. But the Uman states. Okay, let's get on with this and have a listen to what Alexander Scorby has to say.
The Holy Bible, the King James Version, read by Alexander Scorby. The first book of Moses, called Genesis, chapter 1.
Okay, it was actually attributed to Moses. That theologians will tell you, well, this will be attributed to Moses. There's no proof that Moses actually wrote all these 5 books, but according to the Jews, he wrote the 5 books. And let's carry on.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Okay, so pause there, because, as you just heard, Alexander Scrooby just stated, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is according to the 1611 KJV, King James Version, and you'll find it in many other modern Americanized versions, be it the NIV, the ESV, Amplified, Living Bible, probably even find it in the Jehovah's Witness New World Translation, and so forth. So, that's what that, from the, supposedly from the original languages, Aramaic and Hebrew, into the German, and then translated into the Latin by monks like Tyndale, Martin Luther and others, okay, into Latin and then into English, okay, from the Hebrew text, the original languages, Aramaic and Hebrew. Okay, which is incorrect, as you just heard, right, from KJV, in the beginning God created the heavens and earth. So let's have a look at the ancient Aramaic. Rita, or Genesis. Genesis 1, copyrighted by Victor Alexander, 2001, posted October 27, 2001, updated November 15, 2002. This video, his website was pulled down for some biased reason or whatever sinister reason he stated. So I've resurrected it, found a way to resurrect it, but I can't put it up there because it's copyrighted, it states here, so I have to get his permission. I tried and he hasn't replied back to me yet, to do a deal with him. Yeah, so if you're out there, Mr. Alexander, please answer your email. I posted it under your Adam and Eve Lost Scriptures video. The scriptures, Aramaic scriptures, Adam and Eve. Again, as the beginning, the Son of God, okay, because he was the beginning, as the beginning, being the beginning, the Son of God, Yeshua Mashiach, or Yoshua Mashiach, which is equivalent to Joshua in English, okay, in the English, the Son of God creates, he makes, produces, and brings into existence the heavens and the earth. Some translations don't have the S. It's not really a big problem. So yeah, as the Son of God, he creates the heavens and the earth. There's a footnote, asterisk there. You can even note that. And the earth was for him and by him. And the darkness was over the face of infinite space. There's no time as we know it, no 24-hour clock. So it's just infinite space. And the Spirit of God was over the layers of the water, with the deep, all the seas. Okay. Uh-oh, hang on, back it up, son. You just said the Son of God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was for him, etc., etc. But looky here. It says, and God said, let there be light. And God said, hang on. So you said the Son of God did it. Now it's saying that God did it. I'm confused. Well, there's no need to be really. I'll explain it to you in a second. Actually, I'll do it right now. So we scroll right down here to the footnotes. In the footnotes here, it makes a comparison with Genesis 1 verse 1 makes a comparison with John 1 verse 1. In the beginning of creation there was the manifestation. And that manifestation was with God. So what's a manifestation? It's something that was hidden, it's not yet been revealed, but it's come out from something. Okay? And that manifestation was with God, and God was the embodiment of that manifestation. So he's basically that manifestation. He is God, God is him. Right? They're both God. Right? They're God. The Son of God is God. This was in the beginning with God. Everything was within his power, otherwise nothing would ever exist or come into being. John 1:4, through him there was life. John 1:4 continued, and life became the spark of humanity. and that ensuing fire lights of darkness, and darkness does not overshadow it. Darkness, evil, powers of darkness can't beat it. Right? Yeah, so hopefully there's that understanding there. Okay. Clear up that confusion, if there is any. Okay, so God goes on to make the light. He chose light over darkness. And we come to Genesis 1 verse 5. Take note of this one. And God called the light day, and the darkness night. And the evening and the morning became part of one cycle, the first eon. Hang on. Christians probably tell you, or be told by Christians, yeah, he made the day, right? 7-day week, right? 6-day week. He for 6 days he created, then he had a rest on the 7th day, and then holy, so that's the Sabbath. Okay. There's an error there. If this is from the original manuscripts, in the original language, translated into English, okay, bypassing the Greek and the Latin, and so forth. Right? He called the light day and the darkness night, and evening and the morning became part of one cycle or one evolution. Right? The first eon. Footnote. Asterisk. You look down the bottom here. Okay. And God said, "Let there be sky in the balance of the water," and so forth. God called the sky heaven. And that was the evening and the morning of the second eon. Okay. So go look down the bottom here. (153). Aramaic word Yuma. The Y is like an E sound. I'm not well versed in Aramaic, but learning the name Isho from the Syrian Aramaic, or Asher, and Joshua. Yeah, it's a double. That Y is a double E sound. Isho. Okay. Y-S-H-O. And here it's telling you Aramaic word, literal Aramaic word, Yuma, Yuma, eon, immeasurable period, unfathomable period, age, or day. Yeah, I read this in a everyday Bible, Bible-ized Bible, where the guy actually said, we don't know how long he took to create. It's unmeasurable, it's unfathomable. We have no idea. We weren't there, we have no idea. We have no clue. Okay, so it's an immeasurable period. An eon is an immeasurable period, age or day with capital D. Why has it got a capital D? Because the Aramaic and the Hebrew day is very, very different from the day that we've come to understand. It's kind of weird. You have to go to a certain site, and I'll probably do a video on that later on, okay, to realise that in the Aramaic, the Hebrew, they used the Creator's calendar. Okay? It was a lunar solar cycle. So what to do with the creating of the two lights? The sun and the moon. Okay? So it's a lunar solar cycle. That's what they are following, the Creator's calendar. Okay, it's one, yeah, 1, 4, 2, 5. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was beautiful, and God chose light over darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness night, and the evening and the morning became part of one cycle, or one revolution or evolution. Not Charles Darwin's evolution, just part of one evolution cycle. The first eon. And God said, let there be sky in the balance of the water, and chose between the waters of the water. 1, 3. Okay. So hopefully that cleared that up for you. And after all these conditions creating cycle, in 120, and God said, let the waters teem with living and breathing crawlers, and let the flying creatures fly over the earth, and the layers of the sky, birds, bugs, creeping on the earth, across the earth, anything that crawled. And God created the great dinosaurs. Oh, so he actually made the dinosaurs? Okay. According to archaeological digs and finds, dinosaur bones, and science analysing them, including, yep, they're actually genuine. There were actually dinosaurs around the earth at a certain age, a certain era, right? Okay, so God created the great dinosaurs. There's a footnote indication there. So let's see if it is talking about dinosaurs. Okay, down here, 121, literal Aramaic word, titans. Yeah, they're like giants, huge ass animals. Yeah, I'll go for the dinosaurs. And God created the great dinosaurs, and every living soul that crawled in the waters and produced their own kind, and every flying creature with wings according to its own kind, and God saw that they were beautiful. Yeah, different kind of soul though, a living soul. It's not a breathing and thinking one and contemplating one like ours. They're very different. Just follow the instinct, I guess. Okay, and that was the evening and the morning of 50 on. And he creates living souls in harmony with nature, birds and four-legged animals, creatures of the earth, according to their kind. So that should melt the chicken before the egg unanswerable question, because here, if this is all true, creatures of the earth were made according to their kind. Okay, so let's have a look at that indication, 24. Yes, you got it here. I love it. 124. Yes, you got it. Yeah, give him forgiveness. He's an old guy at the time. He's like about 60 or 70. Wears glasses. Yeah. Not too well. Okay. So God creates creatures of the earth according to their kind, and herd animals according to their kind, and all four-legged animals according to their kind, and God saw that they were beautiful. Okay. So you already had creatures supposed to live in heaven. Yeah, so he just made some more like them. Right? Or they gave birth, whatever. Yeah. Multiplied and multiplied. Multiplied and increased. Got together and increased. You know what I mean? Okay, and then God said, we shall make the human being in the image of our likeness. And they shall have authority over the fish of the sea, birds of the sky, and herds, and all the creatures of the earth, and all the four-legged animals that walk on the earth. So God creates the human being to resemble his own visage. He created them male and female. Okay, so he creates them to look like himself. To look like him. His own image, his own likeness. He created them as two or more, male and female. Okay, there are the Lost Book of Adam and Eve Part 2. That's pseudepigrapha. What do I mean by that? Well, it probably was written at a certain date that they could verify, but they can't verify who the actual author was. So it's regarded by scholars and theologians as pseudepigrapha, because they can't identify who the actual author is. But they're not saying it's fake. Right? Or fraudulent, they're just saying, you just can't find who the actual author is. Some will say it's fake, some won't. Okay, and God blessed them and said to them, He sanctified them, made them holy, and said to them, multiply and increase, and fill the earth and its environments. Yeah, well, He's just put a blessing upon them, right? Sanctify them, multiply and increase, and fill the earth and its environments, and have authority over the fish of the sea, and the birds of the sky, and four-legged animals, and all the creatures that crawl over the earth. And God gave them a plant with seed on it, so they can eat it, fruit, herbs, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I give all the creatures of the wilderness, and all the birds of the sky, and everything that walks on the earth that has a living soul, and all the birds of food. See? All the creatures of the wilderness, and all the birds of the sky, and everything that walks on the earth that has a living soul, and all the birds for food. And it was so. So as he's saying there, you could eat the animals at that time. Okay. See if we've got a footnote here. And I give you, male and female, all the creatures of the wilderness, right, all the beasties, buffaloes, horses, whatever, right? And all the birds of the sky, and everything that walks the earth that has its living soul, and all the herds for food. Okay, I think he's saying here, and God said, behold, I give you every plant with seeds that's sown on the face of the earth, blah, blah, blah. It could mean he gives to you, those human beings, those beings, sorry, and the creatures of the wilderness, and all the birds of the sky, and everything that walks on the earth has every soul, and all the herds for food. This, yeah, plants and seeds, etc. But you can interpret it as he allowed you to eat the animals. I don't think it's actually saying that. God said, and God saw all that he created, and behold, it was truly beautiful, and that was evening, and in the morning of the sixth eon, the sixth immeasurable period, age, era, eon, day with a capital D. So let's have a look down here. 31. No, doesn't have it there. I think it has it later on. We'll just check that out, right? So you automatically think that's Adam and Eve, right? Yeah. But here it says, and God created the human being to resemble his own visage, and created him a male and female. So you've got to keep in mind that in the book of Q, by the Friend of Jesus Society and a few other ones, it actually tells you that in the margins of a piece of manuscripts that they translated, there was initials. E, Y, S, and E, I think it is. I can't remember if it is a D, but yeah, I remember it was Y, E, S, P. Yeah, I say Y, S, P. There was Yahweh. Y was for Yahweh. Elohim. E was for Elohim. And then there was S for scribe. P for priest. And probably E for evangelist. I can't remember. You have to go look at that one. I'll bring up another video when I record it. Yeah, so there's like 3 or 4 different writers. One would write, one would go have a rest, that one would go have a rest, another one take it. But they wouldn't necessarily put the same story, right? Because they didn't know what the other guy had written. You know? So that's why it doesn't mention what the first guy says, or the second guy says. Or the third guy doesn't mention what the second guy says. It goes on like that. Anyway, yeah, so you automatically think it's Adam and Eve, right? But it's not. As we shall soon see. Okay. So yeah, in the 6th eon of that unisolar creators calendar, you know, sun and the moon cycle. 128. Here's a footnote here. Literal Aramaic idiom is a form of how the people express themselves. The people of the East that compiled these, translated these, compiled these. God created the Aboriginal man first. So, okay, Adam does mean man. Adama means more than one. Right? Men, okay. God created the Aboriginal man first. So let's have a look at this. You both think, oh, that's the Australian Aborigine, he goes first. No. Okay. I came across this when I first looked at Ian Alexander's website, and I thought it was a joke. Somebody's conspiracy theory, some young guy having fun, right? Putting up some rubbish, you know, for a laugh, trying to get some hits, whatever. Okay. And I laughed at it, scoffed at it, right? And I came across Ian Alexander's email, and I got in contact with him, you know, he was laughing, you know, that saying, well, some guy put up this thing about Aborigine, and I didn't realise it was actually his. Because I came back, 2 weeks later, to this, and then I found his rest of his website, and realised there was some. Put my foot in that one. But he says here he would have liked to have written at the time a seminal book on this theory, but he couldn't take the time from his translation work he was doing to do it at that time. However, the usefulness of such a theory in explaining some major misconceptions in the Old Testament compelled him to broach the subject here in an abbreviated form. It needs to be fleshed out more if it's purportedly to become a full-fledged theory of biblical anthropology. He hoped visitors to his website, when it was up, will find it thought-provoking, worthy of discussion and application. Unlike the theory of the evolutionists, the theory of the Aborigine does not see a contradiction between science and the Bible. It actually agrees with it. This translation of Genesis from the ancient Aramaic, or Asher, actually agrees with it. Right before science was even thought of, right? Or created, or developed. Yeah. So there's no contradiction between science and this translation. Okay. This is probably the only agreement in an ancient text, manuscript. Okay. You won't find it in that sort of agreement in your normal everyday Americanized, modernized version. Right? There are copies you will find in later translation. Okay, he states here the Aboriginal factor. So far, the word Aborigines has been almost exclusively applied to the Australian Aborigines. He thought the word Aborigine was a useful term and should be expanded in its meaning to apply to all people who have retained their Aboriginal qualities despite the encroachments of the so-called civilized world. He would have liked to have redefined this term and utilised it in advancing this particular theory, the theory of the Aborigines, or the Aboriginal factor. Okay. The biblical perspective, I've covered this before, cover it again more extensively. In the first chapter of Genesis, it's revealed that God created the universe, the earth, the vegetation, and the animals. Then, in the sixth eon, a reasonable period or age, or day with a capital D, God created the human being. Genesis 1:27-28. And God created the human being to resemble his own visage, his own likeness, his image. He created them male and female. And God blessed them and said to them, multiply and increase, and fill the earth and its environments. They have authority over efficiency and so forth, so forth. Thus, God created the human being before he created Adam and Eve. Later, it says in Genesis 2:7, and the Lord God molded Adam with the dust to resemble himself, and he blew on their faces the breath of life, and Adam became another result. So God created two human beings, Adam and Eve, and placed them in paradise. After the serpent or Satan deceived them, God ejected them from paradise. They had fallen from grace, and so forth, so forth. Okay. Take note of this, mental note of this. So blow you out of your socks. Right here. Further in Victor E. Alexander's interpretation of Genesis of Bereshit, Brita, Genesis, Bereshit in the Hebrew, of Genesis 6:4, it's obvious that there were Neanderthals, that's a German word by the way, on the earth in those ages and even later, because the sons of God entered upon the daughters of men and aliens were born to them and became the giants of eternal fame. The word alien is appropriate in the sense of strange in the ancient Aramaic language. Besides Adam and Eve, then, the evolution of the primates, is that cycle, of the primates proceeded just as science has discovered, with the various stages of man's development, culminating in the Neanderthal man, and then the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens were the result of the marriage of the Neanderthal man to children of Adam and Eve. This is what Alexander is referring to as, or calls, the Aborigine. Okay? So it's nothing to do with angels, fallen angels, coming down to earth and having genitalia, breeding with the daughters of men, and all that sort of stuff, right? I'll go into detail in a minute. Yeah. So, it's all this supposed the Gnostic teachings of the Watchers, Enoch, the book of Enoch, all this sort of stuff, where the fallen angels were kicked out of heaven because they rebelled against God with Satan. They genitalia, and they bred with the woman on the earth and created these hybrids, right? It's nothing to do with that. Okay? According to this ancient Aramaic Brita or Genesis, okay, you see here. Yeah? So, and it's nothing to do with evolution as well. Only in the sense that things evolve, languages evolve. You know, it's nothing to do with Charles Darwin. It's right there. Okay? Because there were Neanderthals on the earth in those ages and even later, because the sons of God entered the doors of men. And aliens were born to them. Strange, freaky creatures, right? Freaks, giants. Yes, nothing to do with Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. Besides Adam and Eve, then the evolution of the primates, the Neanderthal man. Okay? So, if there's the Neanderthal man proven by science, archaeologists and science, Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon, so forth, up until we get the hominoids, the Homo sapiens, the hybrids called the human beings, due to the interaction of the Neanderthal man or the human being with the Neanderthal man, who eventually outbred, and they didn't exist anymore. We're the hybrid, we're the result of that. Yeah. Besides Adam and Eve, then the evolution of the primates proceeded. Beside Adam and Eve, then the evolution of the primates proceeded just as science has discovered the various stages in man's development, culminating in the Neanderthal man, and then the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens were the result of the marriage of the Neanderthal man, as I said before. So it's nothing to do with Charles Darwin's man came off the trees, lost his tail, lost his monkeyness, and became an upright human being. Okay? Can't be. You've got scientists saying one thing, like the Neanderthal man, right? And all the evidence, and you've got other scientists who don't really want anything to do with him, certainly God, but they could be atheists. So much so it could be atheists, a percentage of, let's say, just for argument's sake, 90% atheists, or 83, whatever the ratio is, that don't want to acknowledge that there was a God that created these beings, and it kills their theory. Okay? So yeah, so many scientists that say, yeah, Neanderthal man, right? We have the proof, and the scientists that say, no, it's no God, and that we're all primates, monkeys that came down from the trees, stood upright, lost their tail, as the atheists push, right? Here, in another scripture, the word for them was Nephilim, or the fallen. This is what they were called in the early Jewish tradition. The word in Asherit, or the ancient Aramaic, connotes aboriginal man. Not Lucy, or Adi, hairy ape man, that slowly evolved, lost his tail, stood upright, and became a brainy human. Right? There's nothing to do with it. From the modern scientific perspective, the Aborigines could be called primates, humanoids, or the Neanderthal man. They were essentially animal in nature, just followed the instincts. However, they had the capacity to think like the Homo sapiens that followed them in the age that God injected Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Paradise. What ultimately survives of the original Adam, the aboriginal nature of the Neanderthal man, is the hybrid human being. Thus, after the flood, Noah's progeny is a mixture of the human being, this is his descendants, right? Those who came from his loins, his descendants, his seed, is a mixture of the human being and the aboriginal. This is what archaeological and scientific archaeology and scientists say. Right? That they interbreed the human being, the Neanderthal and the human being interbreed, and then the Neanderthal slowly died out. Okay? They were outbred. Okay? Thus, all people have the original nature alongside the human nature. That's why you are like an animal. You have the animal instinct. You can be beastly, you can be nasty. It's the animal nature, and Aboriginal nature, and your human nature, mixed with the human nature. Proportion varies, and one of the two becomes dominant, such that, in my or his view, the anticipation of the Messiah during the Old Covenant days of all the acceptance of Jesus, that he goes on and all that, transforms the Aboriginal man into a wholesome human being. This is the basis of the theory. So we'll go back to, hang on a second, The theory of the Aborigine is the advance in the hope of understanding, possibly ameliorating man's savage nature that seems to defy the forces of civilization. Century after century, mankind seems to be heading down a dark tunnel of self-destruction. Can the understanding of the scriptures shed some light on mankind but lead us to annihilation? And it's more here, scientific perspective, political perspective. Most of the problems in the world are due to man's aboriginal nature. Wars may be caused by evil men, like the Aborigines who fight them. Throughout history, evil men have created conditions for the kind of war that the Aboriginal element cannot exist. Attacks against the homeland must be defended if a nation is to survive. And goes on further and further. So, going back to Genesis, okay, we might skip ahead. So, in the sky and the earth were completed in all their evolution. Genesis 2:1. Footnote 2:1. Literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech is expression means powers or revolutions. The planets go through the revolutions. Yeah. They complete their revolutions or their evolutions. And then you've got Adam and Eve sitting here. Okay, so basically you've got Neanderthal man. It's made Neanderthal man, right? Let's go back here. Okay. Goes on about isn't creating questions here. And God blessed the seventh day and made holy because he rested in the onwards works of creation that he performed. He explains how the sky and the earth were created when the Lord God made heavens and the earth, so forth. But all the trees of the field were not yet created, and all the field vegetation will not be supplied, because the Lord God had not yet put the rains upon the face of the earth, and there was no Adam to work the earth. But apparently there was a mist that used to come up from the earth and water. There you go. Similar modern version. And the waters welled from the earth and irrigated all the face of the earth. There you go. And the Lord God, the Master God, moulded Adam from the dust, had moulded a man or men from the dust to resemble himself. It's a different kind of man. Different kind of men. Right? From the dust. He's made it from the dust. Apparently, I read a science report years and years ago that said, yeah, atoms, etc., equivalent to what's found in dust. Yeah. Or the earth. He did, to resemble himself. And the Lord God moulded Adam from the dust to resemble himself. 2:7. Literal Aramaic word, Adamtha, or portrait. So he resembled God. Before God. And he blew on their faces the breath of life, and Adam, or men, became a living soul. So he was in a body, in a vessel, in a body, physical body, but he was inanimate. He wasn't living, right? He wasn't getting up and moving around. Okay, until God blew on your face the breath of life, the spirit of life, and then it became a living soul. So he became animate, right? Okay. And he makes everything holy and even, and he puts Adam there, right? When he created from the dust. And he gave him everything he could eat, right? It's a river that flowed out Eden to irrigate the paradise, and it split into 4 tributaries, right? And there's the name of them: Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, which goes before Asher, and the 4th river is Euphrates. This is in the Mesopotamian region. Okay. Goes before Asher. So that tells you that because Asher is in Mesopotamia, so the Sumeria or Mesopotamia, some area around there, that land is older than the land of Egypt. It's not telling you that there's a civilization there yet. It's just telling you this is where the land of Asher, which is in, pretty sure it's in Syria, Mesopotamia, Syria, right that area, and the fourth river is Euphrates. Okay. So that land there sounds like Asher was way before Egypt. Okay. It's speaking of a future, isn't it? The third river is Tigris, which goes before Asher. Okay, Asher hasn't existed yet, and the Euphrates just give you an indication of where that river led to. Okay, and the Lord God fetched Adam and left him in the paradise of Eden, so as they may work the land and garden. And the Lord God commanded Adam and told him all those men, right? You may eat of the tree of paradise, edible, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil you may not eat, because on the day you eat it, you will die. The death. What does that say? 2:17. Death you shall die. Okay. So they were immortal. Did that not die? Is that someone that immortal? Well, you can't die. You must be immortal, right? You die the physical death. Yeah. You become mortal when you die. The Lord God said, it's not well that Adam or men should be alone, so he made a helper like Adam. So the Lord God molded from the earth all the creatures, so forth brought him to Adam or men to see what he would call him, and whatever Adam called his living souls, that became their name. Cow, pig, chicken, dinosaur, ape, whatever he called them. And Adam named all the four-legged animals and so forth. But he couldn't find a mate for himself, right? Okay. In the Sumerian text of creation, okay. Put the kids in the other room. They shouldn't listen to this. Supposedly, Adamite, the perfect creation, is very similar. The story is very similar. Came before this. Okay. Very similar. But in the creation story about all the animals. But this Adamite, this perfect Adam or being, had no mate, had no companion, right? So he started playing around with the animals. And these gods, this painting of gods in the mythological story, so what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be a perfected being. Stop doing that. Yeah? Yeah, Adamite, the perfect being, the perfected being. So God creates all the animals and he makes them sleep, and he consecrates one of the Adam's ribs, takes out one of his ribs and places flesh in its stead and covers it up like a surgeon. He transformed the rib he consecrated from Adam to be the wife, and he brought it to Adam. Okay. And Adam said, as of now, this bone from my bone, this flesh from my flesh shall be called the wife, because she was consecrated from the man. Okay, so there's this, it's not like he's taking this one person, this Adam, this one man, created this one woman, and then they got together, and yeah, the rest is history. Okay, because of that, man leaves his father and mother and catches himself a wife. What's it say? Adam said, as of now, this moment, this bone from my bone and this flesh from my flesh shall be called the wife, because she was consecrated from the man. Because of that, the man leaves his father and mother, catches himself a wife, and they become both one flesh. And they're both naked, they're nutty, they had no clothes, right? No bikinis, nothing. And they're both naked, Adam and his wife, and they weren't embarrassed. But they didn't have the mind to be embarrassed. It wasn't worried. You know? Like some people, when you're a kid, you don't worry about running around with no clothes on, because you're a kid. You know? You might get conscious of someone staring at you, dirty old grandpa. You know. But yeah, you got no inhibitions. Okay, then this goes on about the serpent, tempts him, tempts Eve, tells her she won't die, she touches it or eats it, because she affirms to him, no, he said, don't touch it, don't eat it, you'll die, right? He says, no, you won't. Because God knows in that era, that age, that miserable period, that you eat from it, your eyes will be open and you will become like gods, knowing you're good and evil. So she goes and touches it because she thinks it looks good, pleasing to the eye, eats it, I suppose. Yeah, she took it from its branches and ate it, and then gave it to her husband, who's probably digging tilling the land, the paradise. Didn't really notice, didn't realise what it actually was. Okay, and then they both woke up, they had consciousness, and realised they were in the nutty. So they took fig leaves and covered themselves. There must be a lot of fig leaves. And they actually, I see the fig tree up the road, so they're pretty small. I think they're giant fig trees. Then God, as he walked in paradise at the end of the age, end of the era, or that day, probably, I don't know, I don't know if that's what I mean. Adam and his wife hid themselves from the Lord, God, in the trees of paradise. And the Lord God called Adam and told him, "Where are you running?" Heard his voice in paradise, and he realised he was naked, so he hid himself. Oh, in the nutty. And the Lord said to him, "Who saw that you were naked?" There's nobody else, apparently. Okay? We'll get to that. "Behold, did you eat of the tree that I told you not to eat? Your wife gave it, it's all your fault." And she pointed to the serpent, the misleader, and says, No. That serpent gave it, and I ate it. So they all got blame the blame game, right? So the serpent gets cursed, he's upright, it legs, boom, legs are gone, so he's a crawler, eating the dust, mice and all that, that's what it means. Not actually eating the dirt, he's eating that of the dust, like a mice, the mice, whatever you can catch, right? Snakes catch, forever, right? All the ages of life. And then there's going to be hatred between that serpent and the wife, and between the offspring, her offspring, or his offspring, your offspring, he'll crush your head and you will strike it at the heel. That's what snakes do, right? But man sees a snake, smacks him on the head, right? Kills him with a bat, or a stick, or a rock, or stands on his head. Well, that's just okay, could be figurative, metaphorical. Okay, to the wife, okay, she gets to suffer childbirth, increased, her pains increase greatly, but she'll look at her husband, be happy, and he'll exercise authority over it. Okay, and then to Adam, because they all play a part, so he's got to work the ground all his life to get his food. It's cursed. The ground's cursed or something. The earth is cursed on account of you and pain and weed of the ages, all the ages of life. So you got to work, got to sweat, grow food, and to make bread, etc. You die, and you go back to the dust from which you were created. Ash to ashes, dust to dust. So Adam calls his wife Eve, she's the mother of all who would live. Yeah, okay. I have a little snippet here from sacredtext.com, which states, this might blow your mind, give you a bit of confusion. What? Yeah, get there, under African. Okay. It says here, ultimately, we are all Africans. Why? Oh, I wonder why they say that. Okay, studies of mitochondrial DNA have proven that all human beings are descended from a small population, less than 100 individuals, that emerged from Africa about 60,000 years ago. Okay. The earliest written religious texts, as well as the first documented monotheistic religion, also developed in Africa, possibly Egypt. But during the European Dark Ages, many ancient manuscripts were preserved in African libraries in places such as Ethiopia and Timbuktu. But, Europeans may have the particular biases and agendas rewritten. The problem with these works is that they were, for the large part, written by Europeans with their particular biases and agendas. For this reason, we encourage you to read between the lines. Okay. So if this is proven, studies of mitochondrial DNA prove that all human beings are descended from a small population, less than 100 individuals, that emerged from Africa about 60,000 years ago, then there's a problem, isn't there? Yeah. There's a problem. Okay. So looking at this, first is the Neanderthal man, and you're now told to go forth and multiply and increase, right? Let's go, offspring. So they're somewhere else, right? We'll get to that. Okay? And then God creates this Adam and Eve, who were supposedly the father and mother of the first parent, okay, of human beings, spirit-filled human beings, who could have fellowship with God, communicate with God. Whereas the Neanderthal man didn't have that spirit breathed into him. Okay, he wasn't created from the dust; he was created to resemble God. Okay, so he didn't come from the dust. He wasn't created from the dust. He was just created. Okay, but he didn't have that spirit of life. So apparently, this animalistic man, this evil man, until he accepts Christ, right, he can change, right, from being this animal man, this beastie man, to a spirit-filled, God-led, Christ-led character, person. He'll be a better person than he does. Apparently, accepts Christ, follows him, becomes a spiritual person. He doesn't have that spirit. According to this text, he's not filled with that spirit. Okay? So they end up getting kicked out of paradise because they sinned. And the Lord God said, "Behold, Adam wanted to be like one of us, to know the good and evil. Now that is why he extended his hand and took from the tree of life and ate." Well, he actually didn't. Eve gave him the fruit. He didn't really look at it and go, ooh, not supposed to be eating that one. Not even supposed to be touching it. What the hell, Eve? And took from the tree of life and ate, so he did it forever. Okay, he could live forever. 22, I thought they were eternal, immortal. To the end of the universe, so there's something wrong there. Okay. They would die. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil you may not eat, because on the day of it you will die of death. Is it 17? Genesis 2:17. Death, you shall die.